Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
All right, guys, welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101. I have a very special guest with me today, and a guest I'm excited about not only having on the show, but a guest that I am excited as having on brand new to Bear Archery. We have Mr. Fred Eichler. Fred, how are you, man?
I'm doing absolutely great. How are you?
I am absolutely better than I deserve. I know that. My grandpa would say I'm finer than frog hair split two ways.
There you go. I like it.
Now, Fred, this might be, for some, this might be the very first time they've heard the news of you coming to Bear Archery. So first off, for myself, I am incredibly excited to see you come to Bear Archery. I mean, when you're talking recurves, who else in the world would you rather have other than Mr. Fred Eichler himself?
Well, I'm honored about that, and I appreciate it. But really, I never felt like, I guess Bear Archery's always been a part of us. And I say that because my whole archery career started out, really one of my first industry jobs was at Bear Archery. So I actually just finished up an article, and I've written multiple times in Bowhunter Magazine Traditional about my interaction with Fred Bear, and also getting to work for Frank Scott. So I worked at the Bear Archery Pro Shop and Museum. Man, literally my job was putting mineral oil on the noses and the claws of all of Fred Bear's mounts from all over the world. So, that was hugely impactful as a young man, being able to walk around and see those animals and just blown away. And every interaction I had with Fred Bear was incredible. The first time I met him, I was 9 years old. He signed a copy of his Fred Bear's field notes in 1976. That dates me a little bit. But that was really a cool experience, and he was such a gentleman. And then the next time I met him was actually at his archery range in Gainesville, Florida. I was there shooting with my dad, and I actually got my dad into bow hunting. My dad was a big hunter, but he wasn't a bow hunter. He kind of, like a lot of guys, felt that, man, that bow hunting, I think it just wounds animals. And, I don't know if that's a great thing for the sport. And then as he delved into it and did some research and realized I really wanted to get into it, my dad signed up hook, line, and sinker. And when I shot my first deer in my teens with a bow, and Dad saw that it only went like 50 yards and dropped, it just blew his mind. So then he was a believer. But yeah, man, I had multiple, the third time, and I got to tell you about this one because it's kind of cool. The third time I met Fred Bear, he was actually in Shands Hospital. I was, I think it was 18 or 19. I was a security guard, one of those, I was working for another shop, and then I would go at night and I would work at a hospital. And Fred Bear was walking through the lobby with his wife, Henrietta, and he was wheeling one of the oxygen tanks that he used to help him breathe. And I said, Mr. Bear, I said, how are you? I said, I love your videos, love your books. Man, it's just an honor to see you. And man, he stopped and started talking to me like, just like a buddy. And it just blew me away. Wow. So I had three encounters with Fred. Every one were amazing. Every one of them made me feel super important and special. And his wife ended up finally dragging him away. She said, Fred, you're late for your appointment. And he even apologized to me. So, it's funny, I've never really left Bear. I guess that's where I started my archery career. I've always been a big fan of Bear Archery, but, I've shot a bunch of great bows, always had Bear Archery bows in my lineup. But, I got to shoot a Palmer bow, which Mike Palmer's a great friend of mine, shot 29 with that. And then, worked with Hoyt, another great bow company, and helped them design their Buffalo and their Satori. And then Bear Archery, not only is where I started, but also the passion that those guys have, and the fact that they're bringing back their namesake. I mean, they're the fact that they are really putting Fred Bear back into the spotlight and bringing up that history of archery. I mean, Fred Bear arguably had the largest impact on archery than any person ever has. So I mean, I'm sorry, Dylan, I'm getting excited, but I mean, just, Fred Bear was so many things to so many people, and he impacted me as a young man. So it's super exciting as they're bringing back, a lot of like the mag riser, on the traditional side, that Fred Bear designed. That was his latch system. So it's really cool that they're, republishing Fred Bear's field notes. Just, I think that's where it really opened my eyes that, man, they're kind of going back. Not that they ever left it, but they're really pushing that whole philosophy of let's get a bow into everybody's hands. Any animal's a trophy, and it just falls right in line with the way I think.
Don't ever apologize to me about being excited, man, because that's why I'm excited to have you on board. And so I'm excited to have you here, man. I love Bear Archery. I love what they stand for. I love the company. I love working with them and for them, and to have guys that are excited and passionate about what they shoot and why they shoot it. It's a breath of fresh air. It's one of those moments where somebody can step back and say, okay, he's excited about what he's shooting, and it's more than just because they're going to pay him. You know what I mean? So many people in the industry, you can tell they're only shooting that because they get paid. And it's a breath of fresh air to see somebody and to hear somebody who is excited about wanting to shoot bear archery and being a part of what Bear Archery is doing. Now, I've got tons of questions, man. I'm really excited. But before we dive in, I do want to give a quick thank you to our friends over at the Pope and Young Club. And it goes back to exactly what you just said. A lot of people had the misconception that archery equipment was not an efficient way to harvest animals. And that is why the Pope and Young record book exists in the first place, to show that big animals and that mature animals can, in fact, be harvested with archery equipment. And so they exist to continue to create new opportunities for us as bow hunters, and they are striving to be the voice of bow hunters. And so what you said, man, just resonated with me, that used to be the mindset, was that bows and arrows weren't efficient enough to harvest big game. And so I'm thankful for an organization like Pope and Young to step in and work with Fred Bear to create those opportunities for us as bow hunters. So what does it look like for you stepping into a partnership with Bear Archery? I mean, other than just the raw excitement, what does it look like for you to have that new partnership, that new relationship moving into this 2021 year?
Man, it's funny, and I like what you just said about Pope and Young too, and I guess going back, archery history is a big thing with me, but a lot of people don't even know this. I know you do, but Pope and Young's named after Art Young and Saxon Pope. Two guys that proved what archery equipment could do, shooting African lions and grizzly bears and black bears and tons of different, animals, and putting on shooting demonstrations at like the World's Fair in Chicago and all kinds of other things. And they swayed a lot of people over into archery as well. But I guess I wouldn't call it a new relationship, Dylan. Like I said, I started out at Bear Archery through my, and I don't know if you call it a career, but as my, through all the hunting that I've done, I've continually written articles about and mentioned Fred Bear and Bear Archery and my job at Bear Archery. And, some of my great friends have come from there. And, Frank Scott and me were friends till he passed away. He worked for Fred Bear since he was 17. I think he passed away when he was 79. And, I worked with Frank and we were friends till he passed, sharing letters back and forth. And, he had given me a custom Kodiak when I left Bear Archery. And, I still have, actually, I'm sitting at my desk here looking at the mountains, but there's a picture of me. Actually, it's Frank Scott where he says, "Thanks for all your help in Gainesville." So, I mean, I guess it's newer with the relationship, as far as, the promoting the Bear products as they go more toward some of the traditional and some of the Fred Bear stuff, which really means a lot to me. But it's always been a part of me, I guess. When you start somewhere and stay in touch with the company and, and write articles about them, I guess it's been an ongoing relationship with a man who really impacted me. Besides my father, Fred Bear had a big influence. Fred Bear's field notes, man, I mean, how do you not read those and want to be like Fred or see some of the things that he had seen? And I mean, I'll never be the storyteller or the, eloquent writer that Fred was, but man, the way he would tell a story that involved everything, not just the animal he was after, but also the people and the places. He had just such an amazing way of describing, the guides and the other people he was with. And man, he was just a super guy and such a great role model for kids like me. And I know he touched a lot of other people. So I'm really tickled because there's a lot of great companies out there, and I've been fortunate to work with some of them. Like I mentioned, Mike Palmer and Hoyt as well. But Bear's real big push of getting a bow in everybody's hands, and let's have something for everybody, from the kids to the adults. My dad's 74; he's still shooting a bow and arrow, shooting a recurve. That's what he loves. But the fact that they've got something for everybody, whether it's compound, whether it's a crossbow, whether it's a recurve, I like Bear Archery's philosophy and the fact that they're carrying on what Fred started.
Yeah. And that's why
that means so much to me.
And what you just said is exactly why Bear Archery and the Eichler family is the perfect partnership. And that's because our values align perfectly with getting everybody involved in archery and putting your boys first and your family first and trying to get them. You've mentioned your dad and you've mentioned all these people getting into archery, and that's why we're so excited to have you on board. And that's why I personally love Bear Archery so incredibly much, is because, and I say this from almost every episode, and I'm sure people are tired of hearing it, but I'm just so excited that there's a company in the world that I can buy something for all of my family members from. When Bear Archery puts out their new catalog, I can look through that and I can find a new bow for myself. Not only that, I can find a new compound for myself. I can find a new recurve and a new crossbow for myself. But then I can look and I can find a new compound for my wife, a recurve for my wife, a crossbow for my wife. There's compounds and recurves and crossbows for my kids, all the way down to my youngest. There's bows for everybody. And that's why I absolutely love this company so much, is because they're so inclusive in what they do. And it's almost like they give that mentality of just open arms, you know what I mean? And that's why I personally have always been a fan of Bear Archery. But I myself too, Fred, I had that homecoming experience, that homecoming moment when beginning to work with Bear Archery. And I guess I'm going on 4 years now working with Bear in some sort of capacity. The podcast is only going on about 6 months. But and for me, when I first started working with Bear Archery, it was almost just that coming home feeling. Because a lot like everybody, my first bow was a Bear. The first bow that I saved up for all summer long and spent money on was a Bear bow, and so to finally have that I'm back home where I belong feeling was just incredible. And I'm sure it's even more extensive for you, having worked for Fred, back in the day.
Yeah, Fred had, unfortunately, he passed right before I went to work for the company, but he was one of the main reasons I went to the company, him and Frank Scott. But really neat getting to work with those guys. And like you said, I mean, they've touched so many people. I shot, my first elk with a Bear Magnum 44, which is a compound that, at the time was just awesome. And, when I was a kid, it was just, they were cutting edge, man. The Bear, I don't know if you remember this, but like the Bear Delta V, man, when, I grew up in Gainesville, Florida. So Bear Archery was a huge part of that whole community. And, I remember being on the school bus and kids talking about, man, the Bear Delta V is the fastest bow in the world. It was like, and that's the way they advertised it. So it was like a huge conversation in the school bus with me and, a bunch of my Southern buddies. It was pretty funny. So it's neat. Everything they've done, though, even currently, like, here's a prime example. A lot of companies, if they make something, you have to get all new stuff. And I don't care whether it's firearm, a bow, sometimes even, other archery equipment, like, oh, well, if you want to use this, you can't use your old stuff. They came out with that new mag riser. You could put your old limbs on it. Like, if you had limbs that are 40 years old, you can use them on that riser. So, like, yeah. I actually, and to me, this was kind of cool. I used an old B riser that was from the 70s. It had the old button brass medallion on the bow. So it's close to 50 years old, that Bear riser. and I used 40-pound limbs, new takedown limbs on it. So I literally kind of married old with new, and that was neat to me. So I was out in the field with a 50-year-old riser, new limbs. It was 40-pound limbs, and man, I shot an elk with that, over on the ranch, and it was so neat. And even my buddy that was video, and he was laughing. Matter of fact, we're gonna put that up on our YouTube channel. But there was a bull elk coming, and my philosophy has always been the first one in's first one down. Whatever I can eat, I'm ready to shoot. And and Fred Bear was a lot like that. He wasn't holding out for a lot of trophy animals. Fred always felt that anything you took with a bow was a trophy, and I love that. But this big lead cow comes out, and I whisper to my buddy's video, and I'm like, I'm going to take this lead cow. And he whispers back, he's like, you see the bull coming, right? I'm like, yeah, I see the bull, but that cow's walking by at about 21 yards. So I'm going to take her. So I draw back, and with 40-pound limbs, that arrow buried 3/4 up into this elk and into the chest. And I watched her run, big mature cow. She ran about 80 yards, and I watched her drop in sight. And I'm like, how cool is that? I've got a 50-year-old riser with new limbs. And I love the fact that they made that. I mean, they could have tweaked it and made it to where they wouldn't fit, or where you had to buy new limbs to do it. But for the guys that have the old stuff, like I do, some of the older Bear stuff too, it's really neat that adapts over, and you can marry old with new with a lot of that stuff. Or you can go with the new mag riser too and new limbs, but you could swap and switch. And I don't know, that to me is that's pretty neat.
Yeah, man. And I could literally spend all day long asking you questions about recurves. I really could, because I am just now getting into it, and I have made the commitment for 2021 to be my year for shooting a recurve only.
Wow. Nice.
And so I'm actually going to be shooting the mag riser. Started off with a grizzly, really loved it. But this year I'm going to be shooting the mag riser, and I'm so excited to dive into that. And actually, Fred, come March, we're going to do a full breakdown on traditional archery and getting involved in it, how to get started in it. And I'm certainly going to have you on for an episode on that to give us the breakdown and the rundown of how to get started. And we're going to have some phenomenal other guests on there on that series, Aaron Schneider, Chris Perino, Jim Willems from Pope and Young, Harv Ebers. Just going to have some phenomenal wisdom in the traditional world pour into us and teach us from the beginning. And so I'm excited about that. So I'm going to save all of my recurve questions for then.
That's so awesome. I've guided Harv Ebers and Chris Perino. He shot mountain lion and elk and deer and turkey with me, and Harv Ebers been out mule deer with me. That's pretty neat. I know a lot of those guys have guided a lot of them.
Harv is one of the greatest guys I've ever met.
He's amazing. So is Chris. Chris is a super guy, and so is Harv. But Harv is just that old school guy that is just the nicest guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a super guy, full of knowledge, and I've had some great times with both those guys. But there's a few things that you may want to tweak on that, on that. And I'd be happy to tell you what I did to get perfect arrow flight, so I could get a 40-pound pair of limbs that would, that I could comfortably shoot big game, as far as, sticking a matchstick, a lot of the stuff that some of the old timers would do, but, on the riser and on the side plate and things like that. So, getting perfect arrow flight's key to me. So I'd be happy to share with you, some of the stuff that I do to tweak mine to get that perfect arrow flight.
Yeah. I honestly can't wait, man, to just, originally, the appeal to me, and I really don't want to get too far off topic, but I can already tell I'm going to. Originally, the appeal to me about traditional archery was the simplicity in it. But I'm also the kind of guy that I want to tune my arrows. I want to fletch my own arrows. I want to, tune broadheads. I want to when it comes to compounds, I've always paper tune, French tune, walkback tune. I mean, I put thought into everything on my bow. And so that was part of the appeal to me about traditional archery was the simplicity in it. But I've quickly learned over the last, 4 months of shooting with one, that they are simple, but they can be as complex as you want them to, which is why I really like it, because you can put as much thought and work into it as you can. But then the act of shooting it is simple. Not simple as in easy. That's not what I mean. But simple as in, I can walk out and throw a tennis ball on the ground and start shooting it, rather than having to carry out a target and walk 20 yards and range find it and shoot. You know what I mean? It's just simple and it's fun. It's enjoyable.
It is simple and it's more efficient, man. A lot of people ask me, did you shoot a traditional bow because it's tougher and more of a challenge? I shoot one because it's easier. I mean, I hate to say that. I shoot a compound for a challenge.
Really?
Man, if you play a little bit with a traditional bow and become efficient with it, it will blow your mind. And Pope & Young, actually, I've actually gone to them for record keep. They've done some amazing job of keeping records. But I wrote an article, it's been a few years ago, and it may have changed, but I think the average distance Pope & Young whitetail was shot at was like 23 or 24 yards when I wrote the article. Well, that's right in the wheelhouse of a traditional bow. And, I've put it to buddies of mine like this. I had a buddy that I shot with, and he said, why the traditional bow? And I said, don't get me wrong. I said, if I wanted to shoot a ping pong ball at 50 yards, I'm going to grab a compound to release sights, you know what I mean? And I'm going to shoot that ping pong ball. I said, but if I want to kill you, I'm going to grab a recurve bow. And he said, what? And I said, well, I'm probably not going to know the exact yardage, and you're probably going to be moving. He was like,
yeah.
And I said,
I like it.
Well, it's just so much faster. It's more efficient in so many ways. Look at how simple it is. And I'm not bashing compounds at all. Compounds are great. I've harvested some terrific animals with compounds. My son just shot a beautiful mule deer yesterday with his compound. But, if you and me stand together sometime, and this is what I did with a buddy, I said, you grab your compound, I'll grab my recurve, and let's agree that 25 yards is a reasonable shot at a 3D target or an animal. So we set up a 3D target, and I said, you say go, and we'll both shoot it. I said, and let's see how long it takes to shoot that deer. I said, but let's have a couple arrows in our quiver. He said, all right. And I said, well, how do you usually sit when you're hunting or when you're sitting in the tree stand? He said, well, I have an arrow nocked, and it's usually on my little hanger. I said, all right. So we'll both start with an arrow nock. I won't put my fingers on my string. You don't put your release on yours. And you say go. So he goes, go. Now I shoot the deer in the 8 ring, solid double lung. I knock another arrow. I shoot it again in the 8 ring. Then he shoots, and he shoots it in the 10. And I said, now I just killed that deer twice before your arrow even hit it. I said, so that's the difference right there.
Wow. Yeah. So, how long ago was that article about 23 yards?
Oh gosh. You know what? You probably asked Pope & Young, they could tell you exactly, but I got all the records from as far as what the average distance was. So I think it's bumped up a little bit now to 26 maybe, but it's under 30. It has been for ages. So that 20 to 25 yards is the average distance that Pope & Young whitetails were harvested at. So that was all the ones that were recorded with Pope & Young. So I thought that was interesting, and it's great information. I mean, to me, a trophy is whatever you harvest with a bow. But I love the fact that you can go to Pope & Young and get a lot of great information. They do keep track, and you can see what areas, if you are going after a trophy or exceptional animal, where to go after them. But, it's hard to beat somebody that's pretty efficient with a traditional bow. Like I said, I go to the compound when I want a challenge, because then I need a rangefinder. Last time I counted, I think I had 32 set screws on my compound between my sights, my release, quivers, the bow, everything else. That's just a lot more things to go wrong. Simplicity to me is the way to go. And that's where a traditional bow really shines. And, it's really bow hiking most of the time anyways. And a recurve's a lot lighter to carry too.
Yeah. Now, before we move on, since we are on the topic of recurves, I do want to give a quick thank you to our friends over at Selway Archery. They make some of the finest quivers on planet Earth. And since we are talking Chris Perino, his grayling quiver is fantastic. I love that it's Bear Archery branded. I love that it slides on and off so easily. It's just an awesome quiver. And Selway makes some awesome custom quivers. They're currently making me a Hunting 101 quiver, which I'm incredibly excited about. So go check out our friends over at Selway Archery.
I used them up in Kodiak last month hunting sick of black-tailed deer, which, of course, every time I go to Kodiak, I think of Fred Bear, because who doesn't remember the footage of Fred shooting that giant brown bear that came around the rock? And, I remember the name of his boat, the Valiant Maid, so being on Kodiak, where I saw some amazing footage of Fred Bear and just, really iconic footage of that giant brown bear that I also got to clean the claws off of and touch and watch so many people come into the Fred Bear Museum to take pictures of that giant bear that Fred mounted standing up, which was really impressive. But it was really neat being there carrying, the bow that Fred Bear designed the latch system for. And it was fun. I had one of those new quivers on there. Man, I was pretty dang impressed, because on Kodiak, if it's not raining or snowing, it's about to rain or snow.
Yeah.
And man, I lured one up to, I used a decoy, and I shot one Sitka blacktail at about 5 yards. And then the other one, I usually don't shoot that far, but it either feels right or it doesn't. That's what I love about a traditional bow. But I shot the other one at 40, and shot 2 arrows and killed 2 beautiful Sitka blacktail deer with my recurve. It was pretty neat.
Now, I was recently with Harv Ebers, and he told me a story. He showed me the picture, and he had harvested the world record moose, and 4 days later he gets a postcard. After he had harvested the world record, 4 days later he gets a postcard from Fred himself. And I saw this postcard, and it was so cool to see, but it was handwritten to my friend Harv. Not a giant, but it'll feed a hungry camp. And it had actually broken his world record. And so 4 days after Harv had claimed the world record, Fred took it away from him. So he said, "That's my claim to fame. I had 4 days of a world record before Fred took it away from me." And then taunted me by saying, "Not a giant, but still a good bull."
Yeah, that is so awesome. You gotta love it, man.
It was a really cool thing to be able to see that Fred had sent him that.
Well, and he had a great sense of humor too. I mean, not only was he just a gentleman, and a lot of people don't know this about Fred, but there were so many little things he did. For example, he was a smoker. He ended up, dying of emphysema. Complications with that, but he had, real bad lungs. But he would never let a picture get published of him with a cigarette, because he knew there were so many young people like myself that admired him, looked up to him, and Fred knew cigarettes weren't healthy. So he would never let a picture, video, get out with him with a cigarette. So
that's awesome.
He did so many little subtle things like that. Great sense of humor. Frank Scott, used to always tell me about the time that when he was trying to sell Bear Archery equipment, when they very first started, he couldn't sell it. People didn't know who Bear Archery was, the Bear Archery bows. And he said, Fred, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And Fred sent him back out on the road to try and sell archery equipment. And he said, "Well, there's the problem, Frank." He said, "Our customers aren't horses, and we're not trying to make them drink. We're trying to get them to buy archery equipment."
I also heard he was a bit of a ladies' man.
Yeah.
Harv's wife said he used to lay the moves on her.
Oh man, I tell you, I think a lot of those guys were awesome. They were just such cool guys and so funny, great senses of humor, and just to hear all those guys. And I got to hang out. That was neat working at Bear Archery. So I got to meet guys like Joe White and Bob Munger, Fred's longtime hunting companion, and I got to sit around and literally hear stories from Bob Munger and Frank Scott about Fred Bear and some of the adventures, some of the things they had done and said, and some of the background on some of the animals. And it was hysterical. I mean, it was great talking to those guys.
Yeah, I love those stories, man. Now, I tell me a little bit about kind of how your wife and your 3 boys play into this whole deal, because I know your wife, man's a bad at the bone hunter herself, and your boys are now to the age where they're starting to take big animals, like you said, harvesting one yesterday. So tell me how their involvement in the show and their involvement in the business and how that played a role in you coming to Bear Archery.
Well, what's neat is the kids have grown up in it their whole lives. So, with the outfitting business, as I mentioned, I've taken Harv Eber's been hunting with me, and Chris Spinnerino's harvested a bunch of animals with me. And I've been very fortunate to have gotten a lot of guys in the industry which is really a neat thing to me. Dwight Shue, another amazing man. TJ Conrad's from Traditional Bowhunter magazine, and the late Larry Fisher. I got a chance to guide a lot of those guys and meet a lot of people from the industry. And what's neat about the kids is they've grown up with two parents that were hardcore outdoors people, whether it was, a bow, a shotgun, a rifle, or anything. And Fred's whole thing was be a 2-season hunter. I mean, Fred believed people should, whatever gets you out in the field more. And he was literally pushing probably the best ad campaign ever, which was, hey, I'm not saying put down your rifle, but I'm saying if you grab a bow, you'll have more time in the field. And it made sense to a lot of people. But the kids, growing up in an outfitting family, they've all been guiding, they've all been skinning stuff since they were little, all harvested animals since they were little. Michelle's dad, he started Muzzy Broadheads. So Michelle grew up as not only a hunter, but a bow hunter as well. And her dad, super active, senior member of Pope and Young, and just a super guy that also shot bear archery equipment. So, the kids have been around it their whole lives, and they're all avid outdoorsmen and like it all. Like I say, Seth shot the middle son, he shot a Columbia blacktail with recurve this year, and then he just shot a beautiful mule deer with bear compound yesterday. Michelle's actually out hunting as we speak, and so is Jeb. So, the kids don't know, between farming, ranching, and the outfitting business, which is what they've raised in, they're pretty much outdoors and either guiding hunters or hunting themselves. That's pretty much what we do.
Now, did the all-inclusiveness of bear archery and you having your boys and your wife involved, did that make a big difference in you coming home?
100%. I mean, the fact that bear archery has always supported the whole family because of the products that they have too. And the fact that they want everybody to have a bow. I just, that was huge to me. They wanted the boys' involvement because that's what they do. I mean, what's fun for me in a bow is usually fun for the kids. So we shoot aerials together, and we had a couple of guys out laughing their heads off. We were out shooting aerials, and I was shooting doubles and 2 arrows at one time at aerials and just having a good time. And the kids were running around, and we were shooting off our backs, and the kids loved doing all that. So they grew up, shooting recurves and longbows and pistols and air rifles and slingshots and atlatls. And, if it flung something farther than they could fling a rock, they were all about it. So yes, I would say 100% bear archery and their philosophy of all-encompassing, any animal's a trophy. And that's huge to me, because I think the future of our sport lies with really pushing the organic meat, the field-to-table lifestyle. Don't get me wrong, a big animal's great. But like Fred, any animal's a trophy. It really is. And if you harvest it with a bow and you do it legally and ethically, man, you've done something. And I think to get people into our sport, and also to have all the people that are on the fence vote to keep and protect all hunting, and fishing and any of our outdoor activities, it's very important that they realize that hunters are out there. We prefer to put our own meat on the table. We prefer to skin it. We prefer to butcher it. We prefer to cook it. And, whether it's the farming and canning, which we do, or raising, honey from our bees, or, or harvesting honey from our bees, it's just that whole mentality and that outdoor lifestyle that I think the general public really needs to know. And bear archery is really pushing that. And that is, that's where my heart lies as I get older, especially. And you and me have had this conversation privately, as the sport comes under attack more and more, and we need to protect it for future generations. I really think that organic meat, the push for going out there and harvesting your own animal instead of paying somebody else to do it. Because people that say, oh, I don't like to hunt, but they eat meat or fish. Well, they're paying somebody else to kill that animal for them. As hunters, we like to know where our meat comes from. We like to take care of it. And don't get me wrong. Hey man, I raise cattle, so I'm all about eating beef too. I just want to throw that out there, but but I also think that organic and getting it out for yourself, man, that's a huge part of the outdoor experience. And whether you get one or not, hey, that's all part of it too. But when you do, whether it's a frog or a squirrel or a rabbit or a doe or a cow elk or a whatever it is, be proud of it. Know that you put it on the table yourself and celebrate that. And I love their philosophy of that. I think some of the push to trophy animals is going to hurt our sport a little bit. So I really like their whole encompassing everybody and encouraging everybody, no matter what it is, whether you're a trophy hunter that wants to take the biggest one on the mountain or in the river bottom or the swamp or whatever, that's great. But if you want to go out and harvest the first animal that comes in range to put it on the table for your family, well, that's great too. And that really rang home for our family.
Yeah, and that's, what you just said about beef, man. I had some friends over the other night, and they're big hunters, and I made some burgers, and I said, hey, my so-and-so just gave me some farm-raised beef. Would you like some? He said, oh, man, we only eat deer at my house. And I'm like, well, that's just dumb, because beef is delicious too. And I'm like, listen, you can act the tough hunter role all you want and say, oh, I love venison, which I love venison too. But there ain't nothing better than a big, thick ribeye. So you're right, man. I love eating wild game, but I'll throw down on some beef too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, there's a reason we have incisors. I like it all, man. Those cows move slow, man. If I don't get an animal, I'm pretty sure I can take one of my calves home and eat it. So I'm with you. I got to tell you a funny story. I used to hunt this old boy's place. He was a rancher, great guy, and taught me a lot of stuff about cattle. And he told me one time, he said, Fred, he said, many's the time I've had steak dinner over at my neighbor's and known darn well it was my own beef I was eating. Oh, I laughed so hard. He said, I got to get them fixed, those fences fixed a little better.
One time, Fred, I was out hunting, and I was sitting in my tree stand, and about, 500 yards away, I see something moving across the field. And I'm here in Kansas, man. We don't have pigs. And so I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, that looks like a stinking pig. And, just the way it was walking and the size and the shape and how low it was to the ground. I'm like, that looks like a stinking pig. And finally it got into and I watched it for like 30 minutes until I finally got to where I could see what it was with my binos. And sure enough, somebody's farm pig had gotten out, and this thing was like a 400-pound pig. And I'm like, well, if this thing walks to me, do I shoot it or not?
Oh, man, that's pork chops.
If this thing comes to me, do I shoot it? It ended up not, so I didn't have to make the moral decision, but it ended up just walking back towards its farm. But, back to what you said about the kids and being all-inclusive, I've got a 2-year-old boy, and my 2-year-old boy wants to do everything I do. And so when he grows up, he's going to want to shoot the same thing I shoot. He sees daddy wearing Bear Archery hats and hoodies and I've got Bear Archery LED signs in my office, and I've got Bear Archery flags in my garage, and he's going to look at his bow and think, well, why isn't mine like dad's? And I want my son to want to be like me, obviously, in everything he does. I want him to be better than me in everything he does, but I love that my kid can shoot the same bow as me. And with that new Bear Legit, man, it looks like my bow. I mean, it looks like a legit compound bow. It doesn't look like a little kid's toy. And so my kids can have that bow and know I'm just like dad. My bow looks like dad's. It has the same little logo as dad's. I'm just like dad. And so that's part of when that Legit came out. I was so excited because, my kids up to that point had little kid looking bows. And I just thought, well, now I'm excited that they get a bow that they can look at and think, I'm shooting just like my daddy does. This isn't a toy bow anymore. This is a real bow. And so that's part of what I love about that new Legit and the whole new lineup this year. What are you shooting this year from Bear Archery?
Man, I'm sticking with that Mag Riser, man. I bounce back and forth between my really old one just because, I don't know, the history is really neat to me, and I've had a lot of those. And Michelle's still got some of her dad's old Bear Archery bows, which is really neat too. But Yeah, like I said, I've been bouncing back and forth between the old and the new mag riser, just because of that latch system. And again, I'm a little bit of a romantic, but the fact that Fred Bear's the one that came up with that latch system, and it was so far ahead of its time. I mean, it just the easiest way to pop a limb onto a, you know, it's just such an easy way to pop a limb onto a bow or take it down. And I just love the takedowns too. I've always been a fan of them. I travel. I like to be able to have one in the back of my truck because, sometimes well, you know how it is. Sometimes you're out in the tractor or you're farming or whatever, and there's a bunch of rabbits around a hay bale or something. I'm like, oh, let's pop the bow together and let's go chase something. So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the takedowns for traveling, or if you have to get on a plane or even, like in Kodiak, we were loading all our gear up on a boat, and it was awesome that I could throw, two recurs and throw them in a tiny little bag, and I had everything I needed to go, arrow tube, and and I was ready to roll, and so that's my love, and that's what I'm going to be probably sticking with the majority of the time is that new mag riser to me is just really and with the old Fred Bear camo, which is pretty cool. So that's my main passion right there, and the kids love it all. They're a little more diverse than me. They which is probably a good thing. They like playing with everything, and matter of fact, I just got some. I got the 35-pound limbs, and they're loving that because everybody can shoot. It's my riser, but we can go from 35 to 60 pounds just like that, swapping out a pair of limbs, and everybody can play with it depending on what we're doing. And the aerials, we like playing with the aerials too. And you can't really. Don't get me wrong. I've seen a couple guys shoot aerials with a compound, but if you want to have fun with a bow, man, it's just. Don't get me wrong. The kids have a blast shooting their compounds too, but man, it's hard to beat a traditional bow shooting aerials, or you're not going to take your compound and shoot at a tennis ball because that arrow's going to, for sure, it's out of there.
Yeah.
Even if you're shooting a judo, that thing's out of there. But you throw a flu on and shoot an aerial, man, you're having a good time. You're just chasing arrows around and flinging arrows at every pine cone and goofy looking pile of dirt, and it's just so that's I guess long-winded answer, but yeah, I'm gonna stick with with one of my biggest passions which is a traditional bow. But I like it all. I like the old revolvers though when I'm shooting pistols too. So whereas the kids like the semi-auto and the souped up stuff. I'm kind of a lever action revolver recurve guy.
Now, well, you're
that's not predator hunting. Then I'm with an AR, so I guess I can't say I'm all old school. I like a bit of the new stuff too.
Will your wife and kids be primarily hunting with a recurve, or will they be looking at the compound lineup?
Man, they're going to be shooting a little bit of everything. They've got some compounds that they're shooting, and like I said, Seth just he shot that mule deer yesterday with a compound. I got to check and see which one it was, but they've all harvested animals with traditional equipment, which is pretty neat. From Trent to Jeb, I mean Seth, Michelle, she shot antelope and hogs, and we've hunted. She shot an axis deer and all kinds of stuff with traditional equipment too, just because that's that's what her dad loves. So she still enjoys that too. So we'll probably, like always, and nothing changes there. The kids will all be shooting a little bit of everything, and I'll probably shoot a little bit of everything too. I mean, I know Trent was having some fun with the crossbow the other day, and even those crossbow pistols. Tell me you've played with those things.
They're pretty stinking awesome.
Oh my gosh, dude! I got in trouble for shooting in the house the other day. I guess you're not supposed to do that, but I had a target, so I thought it was okay. But Trent even rigged up a red dot on his. He's like, Dad, check it out! I put a red dot on the crossbow pistol. Oh my gosh! So,
that's what I'm talking about, man.
Yeah, pretty funny. So yeah, the dog's got to be careful, and I got to be careful that the wife's not home when we're shooting them in the house. I get in trouble for that.
I lost permission to shoot in my house. Here in my basement, I can shoot at about 11 yards in my basement, and I would always shoot in the mornings or in the evenings when kids were already asleep or rain and snowing. And one day I was shooting, and I didn't realize that my target had softened up enough to the point where my arrows were going through just enough to hit the wall behind it. And so I get done shooting, and I go and move my target, and sure enough, there's like 4 or 5 holes in the wall. So the field point went in. And so I just threw my target back in the house and thought, well, surely my wife will never see these over in the corner of our basement. Sure enough, about 3 months later, she was picking up the kids' toys down there, and she said, "What are these holes in the wall?" And I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
And she said, "Isn't this where you set your target when you shoot?" And I'm like, "Nah, doesn't sound right to me." And so she quickly figured out that you put holes in the wall, and so I said, "Well, I didn't mean to. It was an accident." And so she put an end to me shooting in the house real quick.
Yeah, I throw the kids under the bus on any of that stuff. There's holes in any walls. I instantly point fingers.
Yeah. I tried to do that too. I'm like, it was Tucker, and she's like, that's my youngest, and of course he was like a year old at the time. She's like, yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah, see, that's the advantage of having a little older kids, because you could be like, I don't know, it's probably one of the kids.
Yeah, and then you just got to jump on board and say, "Quit lying to your mother."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to, once you stick with it, you got to be like, I don't know, maybe it's one of our buddies. You know how the guys come over and play around. I don't know.
One time I told my 8-year-old, I blamed something on her, and I had to jump on board with it and say, "Quit lying to your mom. We know you did it." And her mom walked off, and I'm like, "Listen, I did it, but just play along with it, and I'll make sure you don't get in trouble."
Yeah,
So, of course, mom comes back in, and she's like, "Hey, listen, I think me and your dad decided to ground you." And I'm like, "Well, maybe that's a little too harsh for this one. Let's just let her off with a warning now."
There you go. See, I'm glad I'm not the only. I'm not the only father that makes questionable decisions when it comes to children.
Yeah. So mom walked off, and I just said, "Thanks, babe, for lying." I'll pay you back for it, I promise.
I love it.
Now, obviously, man, what rings true and what comes to mind when everybody thinks Fred Eichler is the super slam, and especially doing it with a recurve. Now, I really do. I want to have you on sometime and dedicate an entire episode to you walking through the success of the super slam. How long did it take you to fulfill that?
Oh, man, that's a good question. It's funny because originally it started out with Fred Bear being the hero, and I've said this multiple times in print and on on podcasts before, is really my goal. I was like, man, I want to harvest everything Fred harvested. That would be so neat. What a neat goal to try and do. And of course, I made it realistic. I was like, well, I know I'll never get a Bengal tiger, and I'll probably never go to Africa when I was younger. That's what I thought. And I thought, well, I'll try and get the animals that Fred got in North America, the elk, the moose, sheep, goats, some of these cool things that Fred had harvested in North America. And, as I was kind of getting lucky and getting some of those, I'm like, man, I want to keep going. And so it really was, as much as anything, I just wondered if I had what it took physically and mentally to try and harvest all those animals with a traditional bow. And man, I'll tell you, there were some tough times. I mean, there were a few times I was like, man, I guess these guys are just all tougher than me, because this is hard. When you're hunting from 130 degrees to, negative 30 degrees, it was certainly physically and mentally challenging. And I've been told that me just counting to 20 is mentally challenging for me. But, the physical and the mental aspect of trying to get within bow range and traditional bow range of all the different species and all the different, states and provinces and all the neat places I got to go. That was just, man, it was a blast, Fred did a way better job than I could ever do. But it really, bottom line, it's not about the animal as much as it is about the adventure and being with friends and making new friends and the amazing things you get to see. And, beachcombing on Kodiak, just, picking up shiny rocks and, cool leaves and noticing hummingbirds and all these little things that you get to see, salmon running upstream. And, it really is the animal, not to say it's anticlimactic, because it's not at all, but it's just a small part of that whole thing. And Fred did a great job, even in his field notes. And that's what I loved about the field notes, is it was about everything, and the camp or the weather. And, we saw, a wolf chasing a caribou, or we saw this. And, that to me was the neatest part of the whole, about the whole experience. So it was really fun for me. And it was just one of those things that I was like, man, now I can relate relate to what Fred wrote about, on the polar bear, or the excitement or the adrenaline rush of getting, in bow range of a big brown bear or a grizzly bear, or, you know, even if it was a mule deer that's coming down a path, you know, it was all amazing. And, you know, and Fred's video of that big mule deer buck, you know, come running past him in Kaibab, I think it was, that was amazing. And, you know, the video of Fred Bear and that, you know, huge brown bear walking around the rock, and, you know, the video of Fred Bear missing, I think it was a grizzly, but there was video of him missing a grizzly, and he threw his bow in disgust. Like, I can't believe I just missed that bear. And he threw his bow in the bushes. Like, I just can't even believe that just happened. And I love that Fred, you know, was humble enough and had the humility to show that stuff too.
Yeah.
It happens, and you miss sometimes, and that's all part of it. And, you know, remember the old videos of Fred shooting aerials. That's why I wanted to shoot aerials, is, you know, I would watch Fred throwing them up, and, you know, he'd have a buddy throwing them up, and Fred would be shooting aerials. And I was like, wow, look at that. That's amazing. So, you know, a lot of that stuff really came from watching old videos or reading stories about Fred. That's what really gave me that lust for adventure. And to see some of that neat stuff. And, you know, what does a polar bear look like, you know, besides a picture or a zoo? And what is it like to see a wild grizzly bear digging up a pika, or, you know, a little ground squirrel? So, yeah, it's funny. And I wrote an article in Bowhunter magazine about, you know, where I tried to talk about that, but it's funny how much of an impact certain people can have on your life, whether it's a huge one or a small one. And Fred Bear had no idea really who I was. I mean, the first time I met him, I was a 9-year-old kid. You know, second time I was probably 18 with my dad at his range at Bear Archery there, or maybe a little younger than that. And then, you know, later on in my early, gosh, I guess I was probably early 20, maybe 20 or 19, you know, when I saw him at the hospital there. But, you know, he had a profound impact on my life because of his writing and his videos. So it's neat that people can have that kind of an impact on you as you go through life. And it's neat to me that he touched so many people because of who he was and the way he told the story.
And, you know, and it comes back to, I mean, he never knew the amount of people that he reached and impacted for hunting. And that's the kind of person that I aspire to be. You know, I don't know if I told you this, Fred, but, you know, I'm a minister. That's what I do here in Kansas. And so not only in my ministry, but in hunting, that's what I want to do, is I want to inspire people. Now, I may never have the platform that Fred Bear have, or that you have. I may never speak to the millions and to the multitudes, but if I can make a difference in one person's hunting career, then I want to do it. Right. If one person can look back and say, I remember when Dylan took me to shoot my first deer. I remember being inspired by Dylan to go out and try turkey hunting with a bow. I remember then it's a victory. It's a win. Because I think as bow hunters, man, and you could get me started all day long on a rant on this, we as bow hunters have lost the mentality of creating new hunters. We've lost it. We're so busy and tied up with trying to kill the biggest and best animals that we have forgotten that I've got 3 kids, and it's my job to get them involved in bow hunting. And I've got, you know, kids that walk by. I've got kids that walk by the field where I shoot, and they say, "Man, is that a bow and arrow? That's really cool." And I'll say, "Well, why don't you go home and you know, I'd love to talk with your parents and see if I could ever, if you could ever come shoot and get you started, get you taught." And these boys just light up. And if I can, and if one of those kids grow up and they say, "Well, there was this guy who used to shoot back behind his house, and I stumbled upon him one day, and he taught me how to shoot a recurve, and now here I am." And if that ever happens, I may never know it happened, but if that ever happens, then it's a victory.
Oh, 100%. Or even, you know, or even grounding them in faith through your ministry. I mean, that's another way to touch people. And Fred made a lot of subtle comments about, you know, being in a tree stand and you're that much closer to God. And, you know, there was a lot of Fred Bear quotes made a reference to, to God, or, you know, to how great it was for your soul to be outdoors and things like that. So, you know, I agree with you 100%. You know, if you can touch somebody and get them involved, I think there's a natural pathway there for a lot of things that are just make their lives better in general. Our middle son, Seth, I mean, you know, I use him as an example. He, you know, there's some kids his age that would, they're out partying or doing whatever. And, he chose yesterday, he was using, I think he was shooting the Divergent, but he was out there and, man, he wanted to be out mule deer hunting by himself. And
that's awesome.
And just the closest that we have, that I had with my father through the outdoors and hunting, and that I have with, my boys through the outdoors and hunting and fishing pursuits. There's a lot to be said for that. And good for you, not only impacting people from the outdoors and trying to get people involved, but also grounding them in faith as well, because that's a great, that's a great medium as well.
Well, for me, they go hand in hand, and it's deeply rooted in me that hunting and my faith are a strong part of who I am, and so for me, they go hand in hand. Sure, they can exist outside of each other, but for me personally, they go hand in hand, and so, Fred, I got two more questions for you before I let you go. Tell me a little bit about your outfitting business there.
It's again something that just allowed me to spend all my time outdoors, and I, my passion's so deep. I'm usually more excited than the guy that I'm guiding.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible guide because I get so excited that a lot of times, it's just hard. I'm like, oh, there it is, get him, and I get just so worked up. But I've been doing that for, I think, 28 years now, guiding clients. Full Draw Outfitters is the name of the outfitting business. We started, me and a couple buddies, Don and Bly. We started out, we were all bow hunters, and we thought, man, it'll be great to guide bow hunters. And that's what we did. But to make it really a full-time job and to be able to pay bills with it, we expanded into doing everything. So we guide bow hunters, muzzleload hunters, rifle hunters, shotgun hunters, a little bit of everything. But we guide for whitetail, mule deer, elk, bear, mountain lion, antelope, turkey, bighorn sheep if guys draw in our units and stuff. So it's a blast. I get to spend not only the time that I spend outdoors hunting for myself or with my family, but I also get to go out, enjoy sunrises and sunsets with a lot of other people. And like I said, you were talking about Chris Perino. I mean, me and Chris have been together, and, Chris harvested elk with me, mule deer with me, turkey with me, mountain lion, a bunch of different species. And Harvey Ever's been out mule deer hunting with me, and we've had a blast together. And, it's just neat sharing people that are like-minded and have that passion. And so, I'm out there guiding bow hunters. I've got another guy coming in actually tonight. I think he told me he gets in at 2 a.m, and he's going to be out deer hunting tomorrow. So I absolutely love it. It's just an excuse to spend more time outdoors.
Now, you said it might make you a bad guide to be a little too excited, but I've been on the other end of that spectrum. Where I remember I harvested my first bear, and I was so incredibly excited. I threw my hands up in the sky. I threw my bow halfway across the stinking woods. Overly excited. It had been a goal of mine to harvest a bear, and I was just so excited. And my guide rolls up, and I walk up to this bear, and he's like, "Nice bear, man. Good first bear." And I'm like, "Really? Like
that's it?
That's it? Like, give me a little something here, dude." Especially, I'm filming for a TV show, so he's on camera, and I'm like, "Well, that was about a dud." And,
anticlimactic. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it was exciting either way for me. But I've been on the other end of that spectrum, and it's a lot better when you have a guide and an outfit who is excited about what they're doing. They're excited for your success. I am going to make it a bucket list hunt to come on a hunt with you someday, and that would be absolutely incredible for you to walk me through hunting with a recurve and the basics of that. And so I am going to make that a goal of mine.
Well, that's awesome. I hope you do it.
Now, one thing I like to ask everybody, Fred Bear is big on field notes, as you know. What's one field note that you've jotted down or taken over the years that I can take and put in my arsenal and make myself a better hunter?
You know what? It's to keep that optimistic attitude, and really, it can happen first day, it can happen the last day, and if it doesn't happen, it's still a great hunt. And I tell a lot of people I'm certainly not the best hunter, but I'm the hardest hunter. I mean, I'll sit from dawn till dark, and I drive some people crazy. If I sit, I'll give you a prime example. If I sit in a water hole 5 days and nothing comes in, I am just as excited to go in there the next day, if not more excited. And I've had cameramen look at me and go, "Why are you so excited to go back there? We haven't seen anything in 5 days." I'm like, "What are the odds that something's not going to come in today?" I mean,
Yeah.
it's increasing our odds every time we go. So I'm that guy that's that eternal optimist, like, "Oh, it's going to happen, any second." So, I've seen some guys that they start to lose that drive or lose the passion or lose the excitement, like, you're calling elk and, you make 5 stands and, the first stand, the guy's really excited. He's got his arrow on his string. He's ready. Nothing comes in. The second stand, nothing comes in. Well, he's ready, but he's not as excited. Third stand, he's not as ready. And maybe he's kind of just leaning and not looking as hard. And then like the 8th stand, the guy doesn't even have an arrow on his bow. And of course, that's when the bull
doesn't even bring his bow.
Yeah, the guy's not ready. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how do you not, I guess I'm that optimist. So yeah, I mean, and you're probably that way. Most bow hunters are, but I tell a lot of guys, man, it's the odds of it happening at the very last minute of the last day are just as good as it happening the first minute of the first day. So keep that optimism and just enjoy it all. Don't hinge it upon harvesting an animal. I mean, some of the best shows and some of the best hunts that I've done have been where I didn't, harvest anything. And maybe I was camping with my son or, with family or, we just had a great hunt. And it's funny, I've had comments, and guys like, "Man, that was a really cool show. And you didn't get anything." I'm like, "Well, yeah, or you missed." I've had some where like Fred Bear, I was like, "I can't believe that I just choked that shot." But, it's all fun. So yeah, man, just keep that optimism, keep that spirit. And, it's going to happen. It's just no telling when.
Yeah, I actually, that bear that I just told you I harvested it with, and I hunted for 5 days, didn't even see a bear until day 4. And day 5, the last day of the hunt, I harvested that bear, and it was the only bear I saw that evening. I harvested that bear with literally like a minute and a half, 2 minutes left in shooting light. And it was literally like I was sitting there looking at my phone, making sure it was still shooting light. So if a bear came in, I could shoot. And I had just checked my phone, and there was only like 2 minutes left of shooting light. So by the time I shot this bear, you're talking a minute and a half, a minute left of shooting light. And talk about coming down to the wire. But I was so stinking excited, man. And, Meat Eater, Steve Ranella said it best. When it comes on day 1 and it comes so easily, it's almost just like you didn't even have to work for it. It wasn't even – where was that time spent laying in your tent thinking, is this going to happen? That's part of the best parts of the hunt is thinking, man, maybe tomorrow's the day. Maybe tomorrow's the day. Maybe I don't get it done. But sometimes it just comes too easy.
Yes, sir. I know what you mean, man. The hunts that I remember the most, the ones where I was the most exhausted, and that's, are work the hardest at. So there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah, putting a little sweat equity into that animal is what it's called.
There you go.
Now, before we go, I do need to give one more quick thank you to our friends over at Three Rivers Archery. They are your one-stop shop for anything traditional. They are absolutely brilliant. I'm telling you, over these 4 months of me taking this leap into shooting a recurve, I have called their customer service probably 5 times and just said, "Hey, I got a question about this, got a question about that." They're always great to answer. They have the largest selection of in-stock stuff with same-day shipping. So you place an order for some new arrows, they're on your doorstep in 2 days. Absolutely fantastic resource for all things traditional. So go check out Three Rivers Archery at threeriversarchery.com. Fred,
hey, those guys are I just want to ad lib. Those guys are super guys too. Dale, Jonathan, they've actually both been hunting with me. Both harvested mule deer with their longbows, and they're just great people. I've actually shot deer with them in India. They're solid people, and they genuinely care about every single customer. So yeah, they're super people to work with.
And I love how incredibly open they are to throwing out knowledge. Some people you get the idea that purchase from you after you answer all these questions, they're going to be upset. And I'll call and ask questions about arrow, spine, and broadhead weight and all this stuff. And then I'll just say, thanks, have a good day. And they're like, hey man, you too, call us if you have any more questions. And I'm like, these guys are legit, you know?
Yeah. Were you talking about Dean? Dean's another super one over there. There's some great guys over there.
Yeah, they are fantastic to deal with. So I would highly, highly encourage you to check out Three Rivers Archery. Fred, thank you so much for coming on, man. From the bottom of my heart, I am incredibly excited to see you come home and to be with Bear Archery and to have your entire family on board with us, man.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Good luck this season. We are now in 2021. So good luck this entire year of hunting, man. I can't wait to watch your success. Can't wait to watch your family's success. And so, man, thank you for taking time out of your day to come on with us.
Thank you, buddy. And good luck with the traditional stuff. I hope you enjoy it.